I'm Liz Faublas, and this is Curran's Week in Review. Tonight, this week's top story: an Al-Qaeda terror strike remains very chaotic and dangerous. The terrorists are holding hostages in Algeria, Americans, other foreign nationals, and Algerians. The actual number can't be confirmed, but the total could be as high as 650. This is the terror boss of the operation, Mukhtar Belmokhtar. Tonight, he's offering to do a deal with America, release Al-Qaeda prisoners from U.S. jails, including the infamous blind sheikh Abdal Rahman, and he'll let the American hostages go free. A rescue mission to free all the hostages is said to be still underway right now, more than a day and a half after it started. It's being run by the Algerians alone. They rejected offers of help from the U.S., British, and French governments. Tonight, there are fears the mission is being botched. The British are rushing their top agents from MI5 and MI6 to the scene. They've already landed in Algeria and are now making their way through the desert to the natural gas plant where the crisis is unfolding. The British Prime Minister David Cameron is in London, clearing his schedule to monitor developments. U.S. Defense Secretary Leon Panetta is also there, and the men will meet. A tense-looking Cameron gave a grim assessment of the crisis.
We face a very bad situation at this BP gas compound in Algeria. Well, we know there were a number of British citizens taken hostage. We know of one who very sadly died, and we know that this is a very difficult situation as Algerian forces have attacked the compound, and it is a fluid situation. It is ongoing. It is very uncertain. So I don't want to say any more than that now, but I think we should be prepared for the possibility of further bad news, very difficult news, in this extremely difficult situation. Thank you.
One of the Algerians held hostage escaped yesterday and spoke with the Reuters news agency. According to him, the Al-Qaeda terrorists are only interested in Christian and other so-called infidel hostages, wanting to kill them. And he quotes the terrorists claiming they attacked in retaliation for the French military mission in Mali. Warplanes and French troops are battling Al-Qaeda inside that West African country. The terrorists are fighting to take over the land. They've destroyed historic tombs and shrines in Timbuktu and forced citizens at gunpoint to adopt Sharia law. Those who resist have been killed and mutilated. A Catholic bishop in the country says the entire Catholic culture in Mali is being endangered by Al-Qaeda, adding that people are afraid to go to church. Mali had been one of the most successful democracies in Africa for decades. Local nomads known as the Tuareg battled the government, seeking separation. Mali military officers, fearing the government wasn't doing enough against the rebels, overthrew the civilians. Then Al-Qaeda joined the fight. Now we learn how everything just went wrong.
In March last year, a group of Malian army officers appeared on state TV. Frustrated with what they termed their government's inadequate support in their fight against Tuareg rebels, they staged a coup. It was meant to be a short-term solution.
We wish to restore the power of a democratically elected government as soon as national unity and integrity are re-established.
Instead, it sets off a chain of events that has now led Mali's interim president to seek international military intervention. The Malian state has been fighting Tuareg separatists in the north for decades. But the Tuareg were re-energized when hundreds of fighters who'd been in Muammar Gaddafi's army returned home from Libya with their weapons.
We have very sophisticated weapons from the Libyan army that were smuggled into the Malian desert by groups. And they have now taken a foothold and don't want to let go. And it is so, those weapons are so sophisticated that the Malian army really doesn't stand a chance to be able to fight against them.
But it wasn't just the Tuareg who saw an opportunity. The Al-Qaeda-linked militant group Ansar ad-Din quickly partnered himself with the Tuareg and established harsh Islamic rule in parts of northern Mali. They also destroyed ancient Sufi shrines deemed heretic. But as they grew more extreme in their implementation of Sharia law, they fell out with the Tuaregs, who eventually left the radicals to run cities like Timbuktu and Gao. Already the fighting has displaced hundreds of thousands of desperately poor Malians, and aid groups say thousands more are already on the move. The battle for Mali may have begun, but it's far from being won.
The French government is adding troops to its forces in Mali. Soon, 2,500 soldiers will be there. Up next, another unintended problem with New York's gun law. Details after the break. Welcome back. Governor Cuomo and the politicians in Albany rushed through new gun controls earlier this week, then boasted they were the first in the country to do so. Now, another troubling problem stemming from the rush. The bill bans ammo clips from holding more than 7 bullets. Well, nearly every cop in the state uses 15-bullet clips. A fix to the mess is being worked on. Previously, we reported on fears doctor-patient confidentiality is being damaged by the bill and how hearings might have avoided that problem. But in the rush to be first, there was no time for that. Well, the rush to Inauguration Day is quickening tonight. Monday is the big day in Washington. While the crowds will be smaller the second time around, the frenzy to get ready is still intense.
This year, it'll be scaled down. If you call about 900,000 people, scaled down. Officials say for President Obama's second inauguration, Washington's National Mall will have about half as many people as it did in 2009. But it's still a huge undertaking. Millions watching on TV. Washington abuzz with ceremony, symbolism, that big event feeling. What's crucial to know if you're going?
If you're bringing kids, take their picture on your cell phone. Put your phone number, pin it to their coat. That's one of the big things. You know, we want to make sure that the kids who come here are safe, that they have a good time.
How much of a problem has that been? A lot of kids get lost?
No, I wouldn't say a lot of kids get lost, but we want to absolutely avoid that.
About 250,000 people have coveted tickets for areas close to the president's platform. 4 years ago, many who had those tickets walked away angry. Thousands never got past the security entrances on the periphery of the mall.
One of the main reasons there were such holdups 4 years ago, the number one reason was the huge amount of people, a record. But the number two reason was that people went to the wrong gates. They had to wait online forever and then be told you got to go somewhere else.
Hundreds of confused ticket holders got stuck in Washington's 3rd Street tunnel and never saw the inauguration. But this year, the 3rd Street tunnel is going to be closed for the inauguration, and organizers have come up with a special app for ticket holders. The app has a map showing your current location. Then you just touch the color of your ticket, and it'll show you where the closest entrances are corresponding to the color of your ticket. As always, law enforcement agencies from the Secret Service to the D.C. Police, Park and Capitol Police will handle security. They'll close streets, air and water traffic will be restricted. This year's preparations have been replete with rehearsals, with stand-ins playing the President, Vice President, Chief Justice. The real president will have 2 swearing-ins, a public ceremony on Monday, a private one the day before. He'll use 2 Bibles, one owned by Abraham Lincoln, the other by Martin Luther King Jr. Some advice for those attending? Soak it all in.
Use the opportunity to see our monuments and memorials. I mean, this is part of the American story.
And another part of the American story will have a crucial role on Monday. Now we learn that story.
So much history in this small box.
Yeah, I was thinking this big Bible, but it's actually really tiny.
I think the monumentality of the moment has been confused with the size of the Bible. It's actually a small family Bible.
151 years ago, the president who freed the slaves, Abraham Lincoln, put his hand on this Bible and swore to uphold the Constitution.
These are objects that seem to store the energy of a moment, and they're physical objects that have traveled through time and culture to us.
Mark Dimunation is the chief of the rare books collection at the U.S. Library of Congress. Lincoln's inauguration day, March 4th, 1861.
There's this incredible moment, of course, when Lincoln walks out on stage, and as reports have it, the clouds part, and he gives this magnificent inaugural address, and he uses this Bible to swear in at a moment in which the country is incredibly divided.
A country so politically torn and on the verge of war that Lincoln had to be essentially smuggled into Washington ahead of the inauguration because of assassination threats. Lincoln didn't have his family Bible with him, so he borrowed one from the clerk of the Supreme Court, William Thomas Carroll. A seal in the back of the Bible attests that it was used in the Lincoln inauguration. The man administering the oath of office was Chief Justice Roger Taney, who did not share Lincoln's views on slavery.
You can imagine that the tension was probably palpable between the two of them. Taney was the justice that cast the deciding vote that put through the Dred Scott decision. And in essence, pushing slavery forward for many more years.
But change did come.
So help me God. Congratulations, Mr. President.
America's first black president used the Lincoln Bible in 2009. President Obama has again chosen the Lincoln Bible as one of those he will use to take the oath of office for his second inauguration.
This is the actual Bible that President Obama used in 2009.
That's correct.
And the same Bible
That Abraham Lincoln walked up to and put his hand on to swear in 1861.
It's kind of neat, the sense of history here,
It does.
isn't
It has a kind of electricity to it. It really does carry the meaning of the moment.
The moment repeated on Monday when President Obama places his hand on this small Bible that carries more than its weight of history.
And the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts, will administer the oath. Up next, more fallout over same-sex marriage and my interview with a national leader in the fight for life. Details next on Currents. The Prime Minister of Italy is opposing same-sex marriages and homosexual adoptions in his country. Facing re-election, Mario Monti says only one man and one woman equal a marriage and every child should have a mother and a father. Earlier this week, we reported that up to 1 million people took the streets of Paris to support that same position and protest the French government's proposal to legalize the opposite. Now we're learning of even more support, but from very unexpected sources. A leading opponent of the government proposal says he's against the bill because in France, marriage is designed to provide children with families. The opponent is himself homosexual. And the mayor of a French city, also homosexual, says he opposes the bill because it's not biologically natural. Well, marriage and the family join with the singular issue of life to form the core of any society. An important milestone in the fight for life comes next week, the 40th anniversary of the Supreme Court's approval of abortion. And as we've been reporting this week, plans for the annual March for Life, set for next Friday in Washington, are well underway. One of our nation's leaders in the fight is Father Frank Pavone. Tonight, we continue my conversation with him, and I asked what we should expect at next week's march.
Leading the march once again, marching right up front, will be men and women holding signs saying, "I regret my abortion," or "I regret lost fatherhood." This Silent No More campaign that we at Priests for Life organized together with Anglicans for Life is an important message to the government, especially this year, because this campaign started 10 years ago. It was something that what came about when people were thinking, what can we do on the 30th year after Roe? And now 40 years after Roe, we're presenting it once again under the banner of Recall Abortion. Now, this is actually the name of a new book that our executive director, Janet Morana, has just published. And the idea is twofold. These men and women of the campaign recall the devastation abortion brought to their lives and also the healing they found in Christ Jesus and his church. But the word also means that the government needs to recall abortion. In other words, call it off the shelves like you do any bad product that harms people that it's supposed to help. And what we're saying to the government is we have more evidence than ever before. These men and women marching, and they'll also be marching out in San Francisco at the Walk for Life, they're saying we know better than ever that abortion is a failed product. It's an empty promise. It's time to stop pretending that it's part of medicine or women's health. There's no disease that it cures. There's no medical benefit that it brings. Let's recall it like we recall any bad product.
And Father, before I let you go, it absolutely bears mentioning that you have a very special relationship with Norma McCorvey. She's the Roe, actually, in that decision. Father, tell us how you came to be so close to Ms. McCorvey.
Well, it was friends and colleagues of mine in Operation Rescue who baptized her back in 1995. I met her right after that, and she began coming to my masses and asking about Catholicism, and she had some exposure to Catholicism in her youth. But long story short, we came to know each other as she began speaking out for pro-life, and I was privileged to receive her into the Catholic Church in 1998. Of course, we've been friends ever since, and this is a very hard time for her. You know, every time the Roe v. Wade date comes along, it's very, very hard for her. So I would ask our listeners, pray for Norma. She's not going to be out at these public events this year. She wants, to have more quiet and solitude and privacy. But her story is certainly out there, and people can certainly read it on our website at Priests for Life, can read her book, Won by Love. She's a wonderful woman, but she's a wounded woman, and I know she appreciates everybody's prayers as she continues on her journey.
And I do hope that people do actually reach out and learn more about her. Father, really quickly, I have to get this in. Last year, in what has been called an act of defiance, you and your staff stood united in not adhering to the terms of the government's mandate. Where are you now? Has there been any significant financial and personal fallout?
We actually just recently won a victory because we were going to start being penalized as our health insurance was renewed this month. But the government actually stipulated that they would not enforce the mandate against us. So we won a victory here in the federal court right here in New York, and our lawsuit continues because we want a permanent injunction against this mandate.
And up next, more on the fight for life from the Bishop of Brooklyn and an incredible story of loyalty as Currents continues after the break. The fight for life has been a big part of this week's news and this evening's broadcast. Now our news director, Ed Wilkinson, sits down with our Bishop of Brooklyn, Bishop DiMarzio, for tonight's edition of Into the Deep. The topic, life.
Bishop, nice to see you again.
Good to be here.
Coming up next week is the 40th anniversary of the Roe versus Wade decision that legalized abortion in the United States. And it's the 40th anniversary of the March for Life. Now, this past year, the founder of the March for Life, Nellie Gray, passed away. She was a great pro-life witness in this country, wasn't she?
She was. She was a courageous woman, a Catholic, who really took to heart the pro-life movement. She was really responsible, almost single-handedly, for beginning the March for Life in Washington. I mean, many people came and joined her, but she had that idea and continue with it. Various times when I participated in the march, she'd be there. She'd, be able to give a rousing speech because it was so much part of her personality to be pro-life. So. With her passing, she was 88, is going to be missed, but she went home to the Lord.
Sure. And the March for Life is not specifically a Catholic event. This is,
no.
But the Catholic Church plays a big part in it. We rally behind it, and we, especially as a diocese, we participate pretty well.
Right. One of the best parts, I think, right now is the youth that participate. There is a large Mass at the National Shrine of Immaculate Conception, where people actually stay overnight in the shrine. It's full to capacity, over 6,000-7,000 young people. And then the next day, there's another Mass for the youth at one of the arenas there in Washington, D.C., and then they go to the march. So they really concentrate on getting the young people who are the future of the country and who will make decisions in the future to get them to understand what the movement for life is about.
Do you think that it's ever possible that in the United States abortion will be illegal once again?
Hard to say. I don't have any crystal ball. Hopefully we will reduce the number of abortions. 1 million abortions a year is, just disproportionate to any reasonable way. I mean, we don't believe in abortion, but in a pluralistic country, we don't know what you can get, but to have 1 million a year is just completely off the screen, and we have to do something to reduce the number of abortions.
People keep throwing it back at Catholics. They say, well, you're trying to impose a Catholic value on America. I mean, it's a bigger question than that.
It's not a Catholic value. It's the fact that when does life begin? I mean, when you're going to define this life to begin? We're going to have late-term abortions. We're going to actually have infanticide. I mean, the reasonable people can agree that life is life, and so there's a lot of territory that we need to cover to bring people to realize, what life is about and how we can come together in some common ground to protect life. We know that the U.S. population now has stopped growing. What's going to happen? Are we going to increase through migration only? Or are we going to encourage people to have children? Are we going to stagnate as a nation? where is the future? Because life is the most important thing we have.
Yeah, certainly. We just we're going to have an inauguration next week also, and this president has certainly been one of the most pro-abortion presidents in history. How are we supposed to react to that? Should we pray? Should we demonstrate? Should we live with it? I mean, what should be our reaction?
Well, it's probably all three of them. I mean, we need to keep praying. It is a work of the Spirit, also necessary to change hearts. And we do need to exercise some political will to let people understand that this is not something that is agreeable to us. I mean, the big danger now with the mandate that's been imposed on us for contraception and sterilization and for abortifacient pills, the next step is we're going to be paying for abortion. So we had to take a stand, and that's why this mandate is still not settled. We need to keep fighting it, because there will be the point that we're going to be responsible for directly procuring abortions by paying for them through our insurances. This is absolutely intolerable. We've got to make a stand. We have to have the rights of conscience to be clear in our own nation. It is sad that we have an administration that is hell-bent on providing abortion to everyone almost on demand, while at the same time they say they want to reduce abortions. It's impossible to do both at the same time.
Yeah, well, it's a pretty clear statement, Bishop.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us again today.
Okay.
Vatican officials are planning to meet with Italian bank security experts next week. The goal? End the freeze on the Vatican's credit cards and all other electronic transactions. The halt was imposed because the government doesn't believe the Vatican's doing enough to fight money laundering. As we reported this week, the electronic banking ban is costing the Vatican about $40,000 every day. Well, a happier story out of the Vatican tonight. Newlyweds visiting Rome to see the Holy Father also got to experience something else for the first time.
Believe it or not, this is the first time this couple has seen rain. They're from one of the driest parts in the world, in the Atacama Desert in Chile. So Rome's cold weather is something very new for them. They came here as part of a 20-day pilgrimage trip through Europe. It was organized by their diocese, and so the first stop was naturally a papal audience with Benedict XVI.
It's just like you see it on TV. It's great to see the Pope, be close to him, and receive his blessings. It really fills us with joy, it makes us proud of being Christian, and it also strengthens our faith.
The couple met at work, and after years of just being friends, they fell in love. The newlywed couple got married 6 months ago, so a big reason for the trip was to give thanks to God for having met each other. In addition to that, this trip is also part of their honeymoon. We decided that it was very important to us to come here and be closer to God. It was a way to strengthen our faith. Marriage is a special blessing that one has in life, and I think it has brought us much closer. But this Italian trip still has a few more surprises in store, especially for her, says her husband. The couple plans to visit the Italian town of Assisi, where her favorite saint was born. I feel a great deal of devotion to St. Francis for his humility, his dedication, and his love for both animals and nature. Nature is the most important part of creation. That's where we can visually see the power of God. Their trip will also include a visit to Egypt, Jordan, and Bethlehem, where Jesus was born. This newlywed couple says aside from calling it their honeymoon, they're also calling it their journey of faith.
And finally tonight, this is Tommy. He's a German Shepherd. He's sitting inside Santa Maria Catholic Church near Brindisi, Italy. Maria Locci adopted Tommy when she found him abandoned. Every day, Maria with Tommy attended Mass. Then Maria died. Tommy joined the mourners at the funeral Mass. Now that was 2 months ago. Still, Tommy comes back to church faithfully every day, but alone. He's still there waiting for Maria's return. Well, thank you for joining us. We leave you tonight, the last week night of President Obama's first term, with some of his more funny moments. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Liz Faublas. Thank you for watching, and have a good night.
We cannot sustain. Whoops. Was that my? Oh, goodness. That's all right. All of you know who I am. As some of you may have noticed, I had a lot more energy in our second debate. I felt really well rested after the nice long nap I had in the first debate.
Come on, man. I get it. I gotta get one of these. See it. Man. I'm good. You got me.
So in love